I moved to South Dakota about 5 years ago. It was the first time in my life I'd ever lived completely alone, and honestly, it was long overdue. My parents had been pushing me to move out for years, and eventually I gave in. I'm not a very social person. I never have been. So the idea of living somewhere secluded didn't scare me. It actually appealed to me. The house I found was in one of the snowier parts of the state, set back on a stretch of land where the nearest neighbor was a solid walk away. That suited me perfectly. The houses out there are so spread apart that you can go weeks without seeing another person. For the first few years, that's exactly how it was. Uneventful in the best way possible. I went to work, I came home, I kept to myself. I never introduced myself to any of the neighbors, partly because I'm just not that kind of person, and partly because there never seemed to be a real reason to. Everyone out there kept to themselves. Everything changed one afternoon in early February. I was at work when the snow started coming down. At first, it was nothing unusual, just a steady snowfall, but within an hour, it escalated into something else entirely. The wind picked up fast, visibility dropped to almost nothing, the roads started getting dangerous. Eventually, my boss told everyone to head home before conditions got any worse. I drive a lifted truck, so I wasn't too worried. I've driven through bad weather plenty of times, and that truck had always handled it well. Still, there were parts of the drive that made me uneasy. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I was just relieved to be home. That relief didn't last. When I went to unlock my front door, I realized it was frozen solid. At first, I thought I was imagining it. I tried again. Nothing. The lock wouldn't budge. I didn't have a lighter or anything else that could generate enough heat to thaw it. I tried breathing on it, cupping my hands around it, even banging on it a few times out of frustration. Nothing worked. I walked back to my truck and sat there, unsure of what to do. The heater was blasting, and I told myself I'd just wait out the storm. Maybe it would die down in an hour or two. But as I sat there watching through the windshield, the snow only seemed to fall harder. After about 10 minutes, I realized I was making a mistake. The longer I waited, the worse things were going to get. My truck was already half buried, and even with the lift, I doubted I'd be able to get back out of the driveway. I tried anyway. Just like I suspected, the truck was stuck. At that point, I had no good options left. I didn't know my neighbors. My parents were hours away. Staying in the truck all night wasn't realistic. The gas would eventually run out. That would leave me sitting in a freezing metal box in the middle of a blizzard. So I did the one thing I really didn't want to do. I decided to walk to one of the neighboring houses and ask for help. The closest house was still a good distance away, probably about a quarter mile. By the time I reached it, I was shivering uncontrollably. It was a small one-story house, and even through the blowing snow, I could tell it was in rough shape. I knocked on the front door as hard as I could. I waited for a full minute, just about ready to give up and try the next house, when the door suddenly flew open. So hard that I actually stepped back. The man standing there looked to be around 50 years old. He had a very plain, nondescript face. He stared at me silently for a second before introducing himself as Joe. I explained my situation. He nodded slowly and stepped aside, letting me in. I should have felt relieved, but something about him felt off immediately. I couldn't pinpoint what it was at first. The house was warm, which was all I really cared about in that moment. He offered me a seat on the couch and sat across from me in a worn-out armchair. I tried to make small talk. He answered my questions, but his attention seemed elsewhere. His eyes kept darting around the room, from me to the floor to the ceiling to somewhere over his shoulder, like he couldn't focus on any one thing for more than a few seconds. At first, I thought maybe he was nervous about having a stranger in his house. That would have made sense. But the longer we sat there, the more unsettled I became. He'd be mid-sentence and then just trail off, staring at a spot on the wall like he was looking through it. Eventually, I decided I wanted as little interaction with this guy as possible. I told him I was exhausted and asked if I could get some sleep. He seemed almost relieved by the suggestion. He pointed to the couch and said I could crash there for the night. I asked if we could turn the light off. He flicked it off without argument. But he didn't leave. He stood there in the doorway, not moving, not speaking, just standing there. I lay on the couch with my eyes half closed, pretending to drift off. After what felt like a full minute, he finally turned and walked down the hallway toward what I assumed was his bedroom. I really did try to sleep, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. I lay there on the couch, staring up into the darkness. I was exhausted, physically and mentally, but every time I closed my eyes, I felt myself jolt awake. It was that kind of unease you can't explain, the kind where your body knows something your mind hasn't figured out yet. About an hour passed like that. That's when I started hearing it. At first, it was faint, a dull, thumping sound, followed by something that sounded like scraping. It took me a few seconds to place where it was coming from. Above me. I frowned, staring at the ceiling. My first instinct was to rationalize it. Heavy snow shifts on rooftops all the time during storms. That's normal, especially in places like South Dakota. But the sound didn't quite match that explanation. It wasn't random. It wasn't continuous. It sounded deliberate. And that didn't make any sense, though. The house was only one story. There was no upstairs, no attic space that someone could walk around in. I knew that for a fact. I lay there, frozen, listening. The sounds continued, sporadic but persistent. Thump, scrape, pause. Then again. Each time it happened, my chest tightened a little more. I kept telling myself there had to be a logical explanation. Then it happened. A single loud thump, much louder than the others. So loud that I shot upright on the couch without even thinking. And the moment I did, I saw him. Joe was standing in the doorway again. I hadn't heard him walk back down the hallway. He must have been standing there for a while, just watching me in the dark. My skin started to crawl. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but before a sound could come out, he charged at me. He vaulted over the back of the couch and slammed into me, knocking me to the floor. The next few seconds were pure chaos. We rolled across the carpet, and I realized he was trying to get his arm around my neck, a chokehold. He was stronger than he looked, stronger than I expected. For a moment, genuine panic set in, the kind that makes your thoughts fragment. I remember thinking very clearly, this is how I die. I fought back with everything I had. Joe started screaming, not yelling words at first, just screaming. Then he started shouting at me to stop fighting. He kept referencing someone, a her. He kept saying she was lonely, that she needed company, that I would be good for her. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about, and I didn't care. I was fighting for my life. Somehow, I managed to get enough leverage to shove him off me. He stumbled back just long enough. I scrambled to my feet, grabbed my coat, and ran for the front door. I didn't even put the coat on. I just clutched it in my hand and threw myself outside into the storm. Behind me, I heard him scream again. This time, I'm pretty sure he yelled something like, "She's not going to be happy." I didn't look back. I ran. I ran through the snow, through the wind, through the freezing darkness until I reached the next house down the road. I don't remember knocking. I don't remember yelling. I just remember the door opening. A man and a woman stood there. Normal people, regular people. They took one look at me and pulled me inside without asking a single question. I slept on their couch that night. For the first time since the storm started, I felt safe. I didn't sleep much that night, even in the safety of their house. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Joe's face in the doorway. The way he stood there in the dark, watching me. The way he charged without hesitation. It replayed over and over in my head. When morning finally came, the storm had mostly passed. Sunlight filtered through the windows, and for a brief moment, everything almost felt normal, like the night before had been some kind of stress-induced nightmare. Almost. The woman who had answered the door introduced herself as Kathy. She was in the kitchen making coffee, moving around calmly, like this kind of thing didn't completely shatter her sense of reality. Her husband, Brandon, sat across from me at the table. Once my hands stopped shaking enough to hold the mug, I told them what had happened. I started from the beginning, my door freezing shut, walking through the storm, Joe letting me in, the noises, the attack. About halfway through, when I started describing the house, Brandon interrupted me. He asked a single question. Was it Joe? I stopped talking. I looked at him and nodded slowly. Yes, I said. His name was Joe. Brandon didn't look surprised. He just nodded to himself, like something had been confirmed. Then he told me something that made my skin crawl all over again. Joe had been a problem in the area for years. People kept their distance from him, avoided his house, warned newcomers when they could, but out there, with neighbors so spread apart, there wasn't much anyone could really do. Then Brandon told me about Joe's wife. About 10 years earlier, she had disappeared. She was never seen again. There was no official investigation, no arrest, no charges, nothing that ever made it into the news. But people talked. In places like that, stories don't disappear just because they aren't written down. Most of the people in the area believed Joe had killed her. Her body was never found. As Brandon talked, Joe's words from the night before replayed in my head. She's lonely. She needs company. She's not going to be happy. I felt sick. I didn't say any of that out loud. I don't know why. Maybe I was still in shock. Maybe part of me was afraid of saying it and making it real. Later that day, once the roads were passable, I reported everything to the police. They took my statement, they asked questions, they wrote things down. But I got the sense, very quickly, that nothing was going to come of it. Joe had no prior charges, no physical evidence, no witnesses willing to step forward. Just stories. And stories aren't enough. Nothing happened. No arrest, no follow-up, no protection. Eventually, I went back to my house. The lock worked again like nothing had ever been wrong. The snow melted. Life moved on. But something had changed permanently. That night in the blizzard happened 3 years ago. I still live in the same house. That's probably the part people find strangest when I tell this story. They always ask why I didn't move. The honest answer is complicated. Part of it was money. Part of it was stubbornness. And part of it was the idea that running away would somehow give that night more power than I wanted it to have. Nothing like that has happened again. No frozen doors, no footsteps, no unexpected knocks in the night. On the surface, everything went back to normal. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't change the way I live. Every time a storm rolls in, I make sure my doors are unlocked before the temperature drops. I keep my phone charged. I keep my truck parked in a way where I can leave if I need to. And every single time I drive past Joe's house, I feel it. That same itchy feeling in my skin. His house looks the same as it did that night. Quiet, dark, empty looking. Sometimes there's a light on inside. Sometimes there isn't. I've never seen him outside since, but I know he's still there. The only silver lining to all of this is that I got close with the family who took me in that night. Kathy and Brandon became real friends, the kind you don't have to explain things to. Still, every time I go over to their place, I think about how close I came to not making it there at all. I think about Joe, about his wife, about what might still be in that house with him. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in curses or destiny. But I do believe there are people who carry something broken inside them, something that never heals. And sometimes when the snow is falling hard and the world feels quiet and isolated again, I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't woken up, or if I'd stayed in that house just a little longer. Nothing has happened since, but I don't think that means it's over.